This is our 2010 Winnebago View. It's built on a Mercedes Sprinter chassis, and today I'm going to do a full walk around video tour of the exterior and interior, as well as all of the upgrades and features it has. So first, let's get started on the outside. The transmission, we did several modifications for it. One of the issues with these is that they typically run a little bit hot with the fluid due to the extra weight and size of the RV. So what we did to help mitigate against that was to install the PML extra deep transmission pan. So that increased the fluid capacity by about 2 quarts. It also has exterior fins that help with the cooling. And then in addition to that, we installed a transmission cooler that sits right behind the grill here, and it's rated up to 24,000 gross vehicle weight rating. So it essentially gave it a lot higher cooling capacity than previous. Since we did these upgrades, it has not exceeded 180 degrees, even in extra hot weather and pulling steep grades. The other additional changes we made to the transmission include the IPT transmission valve body. They took it into their shop and they rebuilt it so it firms up the shifts and makes them shift a little bit quicker than factory. At the same time, put in a new transmission conductor plate and replaced the pilot bushing and of course the transmission gaskets and filter at the same time. All the fluid was replaced as well, and it's performed flawlessly over the last year with these additions. The stock Sprinter van suspension works well in van form, but when you convert it into an RV like this one or want to take it off-road, it definitely is lacking. So one of the biggest issues with this is the low ground clearance. So we resolved that by having the Van Compass lift put on it, which added 2 inches of height to the front of the van, as well as having Agile Off-Road install their front lift kit, which is basically some replacement struts that add about 2.5 inches of lift height, and they also are improved for just dampening with off-road type travel. Then as far as traction goes, we installed these DuraTrack Goodyear tires that are 3-peak snowflake rated, and they're about 31 inches in diameter. So they offered a substantial increase in both traction and just ability to travel in inclement weather. In the rear of the van, it has custom leaf springs that are rated for the total gross axle weight rating of the van of 7,500 pounds. And it increased the height in the rear around 2 to 3 inches, as well as having the 2.5-inch Fox commercial grade shocks installed. So between that and the rear sway bar, it really helped mitigate any sort of sway that the vehicle had in comparison to stock form. Also, to give it a little bit more of a stance, a little wider stance, we installed wheel spacers between the dualies. So typically the dualies sit right next to each other, and that's fine, except for, one of the problems people say with off-road is that you can get rocks stuck in between the 2 tires and get a flat. So the dually spacer basically increases the gap between the 2 tires, and that increased the track width substantially as well. So the next thing we did was install the Crossfire tire equalization valves. And what those do is allow for both tires to be linked together. So anytime that you're driving on road and the tires are heating up, it increases the air pressure. One of the issues with dually tires is you end up with the inner tire having a higher pressure than the outer tire and can lead to a blowout. So with these 2 tires linked, they essentially go up in pressure together and go down in pressure together. They also have the feature of disconnecting should one of the tires get a flat. So at 30 psi, it will no longer be linked. So this allowed us to do a few different things. One was we installed a TPMS, a tire pressure monitoring system, for each of the 4 tires. It allowed us to monitor both rear tires with 1 sensor. And then it also allowed us to be able to air up the tires together, because through the valve it connects both tires. It also allows us to air down both tires together, which is really handy in expediting off-road travel if you're driving in the sand or snow, or just need some additional traction in rough conditions. The RV was also spec'd with an additional feature from the factory of a hydraulic lift system. So it allows it to automatically level the RV side to side, front to back, and with one push of a button. You can also override it and just tell it to lift one side or the front or the back. And it's really handy if you want an easy way of leveling it. We've used the option to lift the front up in about 20 seconds to rotate the tires. And on one trip, we even had a flat tire before we upgraded to these tires, and it allowed us to swap out the spare in just a matter of minutes. It's also handy if your vehicle gets stuck in off-road or in a ditch or whatever. You could just push a button and lift the whole thing up. So it turns out to be quite a handy thing. It's not how it was probably intended originally to be used. However, I think it is a worthwhile thing to have, and it certainly beats the alternative of trying to crawl underneath the vehicle and jack it up manually. The rest of the outside, we've got this little port here that has some outlets that we've never used. There's the hot water service panel that you can fold down. We added this water fill, so this is a gravity fill for the second water tank, as well as the purpose we originally bought the RV, an exterior garage. This garage is fantastic because it allows us to store 2 mountain bikes in here, and realistically you could store any gear you want. It's one of the only RVs that's of this size, if not the only one, that has a garage. Most of them you don't see that have a garage until they get into the super size. All right, so there are storage compartments galore here. We've got a front storage compartment that is gasket sealed, which keeps the dust out. We've got a rear one, which is also sealed one. We typically store the hose and water filters in there. This rear area used to be the generator, which we removed with the solar. It really didn't need it at all. It also has additional diesel storage. That's what we use it for currently. On the back here, we have the vent for the furnace. The spare tire. The spare tire is a matching full-size spare to the rest of the tires. We replaced them at the same time. And on this side, we have the power connection, so you can plug it in if you choose to, and then charge the batteries. And then you've got your fridge vents. And the fridge vents, we added additional insulation, so it has no draft. It's all sealed off on the inside. You can see the reflective tape there. And this is no longer a propane fridge, it is an electric fridge. Okay, in the front compartment on the driver's side, we have the propane fill. It also has the ARB dual air compressor that we use to air up the tires. There's a tire pressure gauge, and then we have the tire air down tools, and then the ARB air hose. So the ARB air hose from this one port here will reach all 4 tires. So it makes for a quick air up process. All right, so the next storage compartment back, we store the brand new tire chains, which are the appropriate size for these tires, as well as there's some tire covers if you're storing the vehicle outside. We store inside, so we haven't used those, as well as some tire levelers. So if you are off level, you can drive up your rig on them and get it more level if you don't want to use the hydraulic jack. Storage compartment. And this one has the tank access, so you've got the drain hose for your sewer connection, and then your black water and your gray water drain, as well as an exterior shower and your water fill port. And let's take a tour of the inside. The front has automatic opening steps. We installed a strut, so as you saw, the door just opens by itself, but then also holds itself without slamming open. I guess it's a feature on the new RVs that this one in this vintage didn't have. So come on in. All right, so as you can see, one of the really unique things about this RV is that it is fully functional with the slide in. Right now, with the slide in, you can easily get around. All the doors open. There's plenty of clearance and room Typically when we use the RV, we rarely put the slide out. I think we've put it out maybe a handful of times total. But just so you can see how that works and how much more space it gives you, we'll go ahead and open it up. So the first step to opening the slide is to remove the slide lock. So it just sits in between the slide and the body, and it keeps the slide well in place while you drive around, so it doesn't want to try to kick around, especially if you're on rough roads or whatnot. So we attach the key to the slide so that way you can't accidentally try to open the slide with the lock in place. You insert the key into the master control switch and then turn it, and then use the extend button to go ahead and extend it. The key with opening the slide or closing the slide is you want to leave the door open, because it does change the air volume space inside of the RV quite a lot. So once it's open, you can see now the inside is massive. You have enough room to roller skate in or something. So this has a few different features here. On the front, we have a bunk, and you can see the bunk actually lifts up. It's on struts. So that way, if you're coming into the front of the RV, you don't even have to like bend over to get in there. We leave it down most of the time and just bend over because it's not very difficult. There's a ladder to get to the top bunk, which just gets inserted into these different mount points here. Drops down, and you have access into the bed. And this bed is plenty large enough for full-size adults. Or, as we used it, it's great for storage. So we used it for storing our inflatable paddle boards up top there. Over on this other side, we have the dinette. The dinette has two large storage compartments. You can see how big these are, and they're the same on each side. There's also seat belts for each one of these benches, so you can have passengers ride fully secured. This table drops down into a bed, so you basically form into another sleeping bed, so you can actually sleep 4 people in the front as well as the people in the back. So that's how that goes. You have to fold that seat up to get it in there, and the seat backs form into the cushion for the middle there. One of the features that makes the Winnebago View really special is this huge skylight, which actually opens up, and there's also a pull across shade, and then on the other side is a pull across screen. So one of the great things with this is that not only does it allow for additional airflow, but it also gives a huge amount of light in here. So while you're sitting here at the dinette table, it just feels very open and airy. The other thing is that it's quite tall. I'm 6 foot tall, and I can reach my hand up all the way, so it's about almost 8 foot to the top of that skylight. So it gives it a very airy feel. On the dinette area, we've got a pull down shade, which is, one is a light filtering shade, and the other is a more or less blackout shade. These are really nice because you can leave them at any position. They have resistance on them. And then you have a large window that also has a sliding screen, and the window is tinted, so it helps with a little privacy and also helps reject some heat. On the other side, there's some LED lights. All of the lights in the coach and on the outside have been changed over to LED. So they're not only super bright, but they also just are very efficient, especially when you're off-grid operating off of batteries. All right, so for cabinetry, we have upper cabs over the dinette. All of the latches here are positive engagement latches, meaning you push them out to pull, and it disengages from this catch plate here. So it keeps your cabinets from swinging open while you travel. This is something you find on the upper end coaches, not something that's in the cheaper ones that, you know, the doors all fall open as you're driving. There's also aluminum extrusions here that's built into the cabinetry. So this is an aluminum piece here, and it's just very well built, very structurally built. On the kitchen side, we have a small window that has a crank out style opening window, as well as a mini blind. There's additional LED lights here, and then lots of cabinetry storage space. So these all are the same style of positive engagement latches, so when they're pushed in, they don't come open. Down here is a large cabinet, could be used for trash. We also installed a water filter underneath here, which we'll go over with the water system. And then you have lots of drawers. These all are engagement style drawers, so they stay closed. They're very positive engaging. This is a hood vent, and then you have microwave and the 3-burner stove. So that's all propane operated, as well as a large drawer for larger cooking pans. And then on this side over here, we have all the control panels. So this has all the readouts for everything. This shows the levels of the black water, gray water, fresh water, LP gas, battery charge. And then this is the switch for the water pump, the water heater, and the generator if we still had one. We don't. The holding tank heater, this is only used if you're plugged in. And then the LP gas actually shuts off the gas at the tank. So if you're traveling or if you're going to fill the tank, you go ahead and switch that off. This is the water heater 110 if you're plugged in. And then here's the solar and battery charge readouts there. This is a extra large fridge. It's an isotherm replacement of the propane unit that was originally in here. So the advantage of the compressor style fridge is that it can operate almost at any angle, somewhere up to around 30 degrees angle. And the other advantage is that it cools much more efficiently when it's hot out. Propane fridges typically have more issue trying to keep cool as the temperatures increase. The other advantage of it is that it runs completely off of the batteries, so there's no propane usage, and with the solar, it pretty much can operate indefinitely. The other advantage with the compressor style fridges is it's extra deep. You probably gain around 4 inches of depth inside the fridge. This is large enough that you can hold 5 dozen eggs on the shelf and have plenty of extra space. The lower area is an extra large freezer that is quite huge. We've stored ice cream and 5 pounds of tater tots and all sorts of stuff in there, and it's amazing how much you can fit. It's more than enough space for 2 to 3 weeks off grid with 2 people or more, which is really nice. Moving towards the back, I guess we can go down here. So we've got an additional drawer here for storage, and then in the back is kind of the bathroom sink area. So you've got a mirror here, you've got a cabinet for storing all your bath type stuff, you got a little sink here, and then a bit more storage underneath. And then we have the bathroom. So the bathroom is a full bath, so it's not a wet bath, and it has a shower with a retractable curtain, and then it has a standard flush toilet. The shower is nice because it has a skylight, so it allows for a little extra height, and it also gives more light in there. It also has a fan on the ceiling. And this shower head comes off, so you can use it to wash. You hang it back up or use it for other stuff as well. And then we also have a secondary roof vent here. This is where the original air conditioner used to be. So we have dual roof vents, so they can be operated and keep the whole house kind of cool when you're operating off grid. In the back, we have the bedroom. So this is the main bedroom area. There's large storage compartments up top, and as well as this back one that we added kind of some netting to, just to allow for the stuff to not fall out. In the back here, there's an additional light switch, and then we have the furnace control so that you can set your temperature on. Now, this bed, we actually elevated it, and as you can see here from this little ladder we put in, it's increased the height. Originally the height was down here, but in order for the exterior cabinet to be big enough for storing mountain bikes and kind of seal it off from the inside, we went ahead and built this platform here. And so it does a few things. One is that it allows for some additional storage underneath here. So if you have extra linens or you know, blankets or whatnot like that, or even your hamper type items, you can store them back underneath here. And we also have our water tank underneath here. Here's the last cabinet. It's the closet, and it's quite a large closet. It's got a light that comes on when you open the door, and it's also where the WeBoost cell booster is located. Underneath there is the cabinet that has access to all the plumbing as well as the water pump. One of my favorite features is the front of the RV. Both seats swivel, so you can have additional seating in the RV, and just as a nice comfortable seat. These are some of the most amazing soft plush leather that I've ever felt. It's amazing. It feels almost buttery smooth and soft and supple. It's probably one of the things we'll miss the most about this RV is just how nice these seats are in the front. Now, up in the front, all right, so in the cockpit of the RV, one of the things that we love about it is just these expansive windows. They're just extremely tall. It also has a really short nose to it, so it's extremely easy to drive. It's as easy as a van, or even nicer than most vans to drive on the highway. And it just has a really nice feeling seating position, as well as it drives almost, you know, like a small van or car. It's very easy. The other features that this has is, of course, some cruise control, just the basic stuff there. And then we have a stereo that also operates as a backup camera. One of the things we really like about it is it actually has a button for the camera, so you can turn on and off the camera anytime while you're driving forward or anywhere. Then down here we have a battery boost button, which combines the house batteries to the coach battery. Just in case you had a dead battery, you can actually start yourself, jump yourself. And then it has a radio power button. This is a scan gauge. So scan gauge is located up here. We just have it velcroed to the dash, and that helps us monitor the engine temperature as well as the load of the engine, the transmission temperature, as well as how much fuel it is using. And then over here we have the TPMS, so this monitors the tire pressure as well as the tire temperature. And then here's the controller for the auto leveling hydraulic jack system. This is just a standard cell phone holder that we use. It's wireless charger, which is kind of handy, but it also just kind of keeps it out of the way, and it's a nice convenient location. The front does have blinds that come across on both sides for some extra privacy, which is kind of nice. Most of the time we just use the curtain that's out here on the face here. So this curtain comes across the whole area here. So that's an easy way to just cover and give yourself some privacy pretty easily. The front windows on the RV are tinted, and they also have the reflective, so heat rejection film, which is kind of a nice thing in the sunnier weather, but also gives it just a little bit more privacy too. It's a really nice cockpit, and one of the things that's great about having an RV is you can go from the front to the back while you're driving, or really easily when you stop and make yourself a sandwich when you're out on travels, which is super handy. The electrical system on the RV was done by AM Solar in Southern Oregon, and on the roof they installed 4 180 watt solar panels and 2 100 watt solar panels, giving us a total of 920 watts of solar power, which is quite substantial. Typically, if the sun is fairly direct, that means over 60 amps of power that it can charge the batteries with. And in this storage compartment down here, if you want to take a look, we have the Victron 85 amp MPPT solar controller, as well as they install a disconnect for it, as well as underneath the coach there are 3 other circuit breakers that disconnect the other various connections. Now, moving inside the coach, in the floor of the entry is the stock location of the batteries. However, these batteries are not stock. These are 400 amp hour 6-volt Lifeline batteries, which by how we've been using it, which is typically they only go down about 15% at any given time, they'll last around 10 years. And then come on to the inside. Underneath the dinette, we have 3 different sockets 12-volt plugs for charging laptops or charging any sort of DC type connection. And then on the top of the dinette, we have 4 USB 2.1 amp charge ports, so you can charge any of your electronic type items. By the front door, there's also 2 more charge ports here, and then here is the cell booster for the WeBoost for your cell phone signal booster, and then the main part of the controller is in the closet here, and then the exterior antenna is mounted on the ladder on the outside. This turns on and off the WeBoost, and it's just another 12-volt socket plug that's been wired in. On this wall, we have all of the charge controller stuff. So this shows how many amps of solar is going into the batteries at any given time. Since we're indoors, it's 0. And then this is the battery charge state, which is at 93%. It also has the ability to be monitored on your phone through Bluetooth app. So you can monitor it without even walking back here. And then for plug-in AC type items, we have just a standard 400 watt power inverter with the switch here. So you can power small AC powered electrical items. Our water system includes an upgraded SureFlow pump, as well as we wanted additional water for extended periods off grid. So we installed a secondary water tank. So this water tank here is filled either by the city fill that the stock tank fills on, or the gravity fill, which is on the outside that we showed on the walk around. There's also a valve that you can see down here near the floor that shuts off the tank. So if you want to operate with or without either of the tanks, you can just close it off. They are linked together, so when the valve is open, this tanks equalize between each other. So you have a total of just over 60 gallons of fresh water, which is pretty handy. The other thing we did was to install a under-sink water filter. So this helps get out all the nasty stuff that could accumulate in a tank and or that wouldn't come out of the original filters. And then there's a drinking filter here. It also is filtered water on the cold water side here. We also installed a just soap dispenser, which helps just keep the kitchen clean so you don't have a soap bottle kind of bouncing around that could get knocked over while you travel. And there's a power awning. With the push of a button, you have shade and some cover on the outside, which is really handy. Final thing that we really appreciate with the Winnebago is just the construction quality. This unit is built in 2010, and it still is nice. It is very well put together. The whole wall system and roof is all welded aluminum framing, and then fiberglass is overlaid on top. The roof is all fiberglass, and as you can see, the roof actually wraps around to the sides. So it really just eliminates most possibilities for water infiltration, which is really the #1 killer of RVs. The whole chassis is just extremely rigid. We've had different occasions where we've driven it and the front tire will come off the ground because of the terrain not being even. And the whole chassis just is very solid. There's no popping or banging or twisting or any of that goes on with it. It's just a very solid structural built RV, which is really nice. We've really enjoyed this RV and just how easy it is to drive around. Even with the 170-inch wheelbase, it turns very tight. I mean, it's tighter turning than most trucks are with 160 or even 150-inch wheelbase. The other thing is it's a narrower coach than most RVs. So most RVs are around 102 inches in width. And that's really wide when you go to park in a parking spot or if you want to parallel park in the city. It's difficult. This is 90 inches, so it's right at 7.5 feet wide versus 8.5. And that extra foot makes a big difference. And if you're trying to drive in small, narrow spaces, it just makes it a lot easier. The other thing we find is that we park it at any trailhead. Even though it's about 24 foot in length, with the back overhang, we can just back right into a parking spot, and we can fit in any typical parking spot. It'll just have the back end hanging over the curb by a few feet. So it's a great size to just have the comfort, but then also you have something it's very functional as far as just driving and easy to drive. You don't have to think about or pre-plan where you're going to drive or where you're going to park and that sort of thing. Fuel mileage is fantastic on these. It's one of the unusual things with a vehicle of this size. It averages 17 miles per gallon, which is incredible. 17. That's the average that we've had since owning it. And the worst we've ever had was 14. And that was with driving in the snow off-road for about 200 miles. So this thing is fantastic for just being able to drive long distances in comfort without breaking the bank with your fuel budget. But you can live completely off-grid for 2 weeks or more with 2 people. It'd be easy with one person to be off-grid for a month or more with how much water storage there is and then how much room there is just for food between the fridge, the freezer, and just the overall storage capacity everywhere. The solar basically allows you to run completely self-sufficient without plugging in at all. So all you need is some access to a little bit of sun in the sky. And even if you didn't have sunny days, you can just drive it a little bit and it will charge the batteries from the engine, which is great. So you can really easily be off grid and just be extremely comfortable in here. The propane system is really large as well. It's an 18-gallon propane tank. So it gives you around 14 gallons of usable propane, which is a ton of propane. If you're just operating, especially in the summertime where you're running maybe the water heater and the stove with propane, it could last for a year or more. In the wintertime, even if you're running the furnace a fair bit, you probably get over 2 weeks to a whole month, depending on the temperature and how often you're running the furnace, which is really great. So if you wanted to travel somewhere and just get off grid and just enjoy some time, you really don't have to think much about the systems and just how to keep everything going. It's just really hands off, very easy. The other thing that we added to the RV, which we think is a lot of fun, is a motorcycle mount. So you can see over here, it's a ramp system. It's a bifold ramp and a tray, and basically it sits really high so it can't drag. If you are parking it, it sits up really high, so the bottom of it is right about here, so the lights are completely open. And it allows us to carry it along this little Kawasaki Z125. So it's a mini motorcycle, and we ride, my wife and I ride around on it, 2 up on there, and it's fantastic. We get 70 to 80 miles to the gallon, and if you're parking near a national park and you just want to go explore, you can park the RV somewhere and take off on this little guy and have a lot of fun. So the RV does allow for a lot of different just uses, and this is just a fun addition that we did to it as well. All right, loading the little motorcycle. So once it's pushed all the way back, it kind of captures the rear wheel. So it kind of holds it in place there. Ramp folds up and strap it in place. So the other strap that we typically put on, we just tie it around the frame, down around the bottom and back. That just keeps it nice and planted. This basically captures the front wheel. That's capturing the back wheel. And as we tighten the ramp up, it's smashing it together, but also keeping it from going anywhere. So that's basically the loading process. Unloading is the exact opposite. All right, here's a startup video. So that kind of concludes the wrap up of the Winnebago View. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments, and I'm glad to answer any that you might have. And otherwise, we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.